Yeah, hey everyone. My name's Jack Barker. I'm from Team Ingame, and you're listening to the RoboCast.
Hello everyone, my name is SamElliott64 and welcome back to the RoboCast with myself, WorldofWoodrow DavidofSmeg, and joining us for the first time, Mr. Jack Barker from Endgame. How are you, sir? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. Yeah, it's been a good weekend.
I mean, given how the obviously the competition went with you as well in the Golden Bolt, I'm sure it added to that little bit extra. I saw some photos. Would you have some kind of watch party where you had both Golden Bolts bolted into the giant that you won a couple of years ago?
Yeah, one of our sponsors, Circo, hosted a function for us. We invited a bunch of friends and other sponsors and things like that. So yeah, we got everyone together to watch it, and at the end we buttered them together and put the nut in between, and just to see if it would fit. You know, you're gonna try it once.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just once, so we don't want to scratch anything.
Well,
Yeah,
it's got to be a widely known. Well, it's not a widely known thing, but I hopefully it's been done 3 or 4 times now where a golden bolt and a giant have gone together, but not
BattleBots
both
on
ways
social
before.
media shared almost all of them in a final plea to everyone to stop asking.
They do fit.
Please stop asking.
Yeah.
I think the manufacturer changed recently, so
They did,
maybe the
yeah.
older ones. Like I think our giant nut was from the last one, so it was like I don't know if it's gonna fit. So you got to give it a go. Yeah,
I'm sure Aaron did it on TV last night. Like he did it on screen. It was,
Yeah,
it was
it's
on the
in
show.
it's in the Golden Bolt last year. It's
That's amazing. People will always ask. We're not just here to talk about trophies. I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later on. We are here, obviously, to talk not just about the episode, but also about Endgame. And I'm going to start with a question from user Spacey Sasha on Twitter, who asks, "Do you have any pre-fight rituals or superstitions? And if you do, what are they?"
um, I guess yeah, not really. Before a fight, I'll have a good nap. Like in the waiting area, I'll try and fall asleep, just try and relax. I find the worst thing as a driver, the worst thing to do is to like get all like up yourself and like wired before a fight. So I try to just relax, listen to some music, have a nap if I can, while the team prepares the robot. So yeah, that was probably my pre-fight ritual. I've got some good photos of the production team, shining lights at me and shooting cameras while we wait for a fight. But yeah.
I mean, BattleBots is a tiring experience anyway, so I'm sure no one would blame you for trying to get an extra 5 minutes here and there.
Yeah,
but...
don't doubt the team, but it's quite good to have an extra hour or so nap just while they put the front on or charge the batteries or.
That's great stuff.
Razor259 on YouTube asks, well, first of all, says congratulations on the win. Anzac represent. What can we see from the New Zealand robot combat scene in the future?
And also, what's it currently like?
Well,
'cause, I mean, I don't really know what it's like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, given, a lot of our audience is going to
You
be
don't
from
keep
either...
up with
Well,
New
listen,
Zealand robot
listen,
combat on Facebook.
Listen, I only got so much bandwidth.
That's how
Shame.
deep down the rabbit hole I ended up doing the news. Is I ended up on the New Zealand pages looking at what they were up to.
Yeah, well, thanks for the congrats, Razor. But yeah, I guess the New Zealand scene currently, we sort of have a beetle scene. So 3-pound robots. We fight every month, which is cool. Nick and I started a company called Robot Rampage, which we're doing a whole bunch of new stuff, from going to events like Comic Cons to doing corporate events and teaching people how to build robots. So that's coming along cool too. So we've got a sort of like a robot complex that we're developing. So that's got a featherweight arena that's sort of in progress as well. So hopefully sometime early next year we'll have our first feather event. And we're going to have that kitted out with all the tech to do live streaming and stuff like that. So hopefully we can run some cool events out of that. So yeah, I think once our space is ready, it'll really boost the scene in New Zealand. But yeah, for now we're doing beetle weights, but coming soon, bigger stuff.
That's really cool because,
nice.
given that, historically, if you look at the robot combat around the world, it's kind of either basically the UK and America, a little bit of China, about 5
Bit
years
of
ago.
Australia.
Yeah, but like, New Zealand just seems like a very, like, how did you get involved in robot combat? Because like there's no, let's say, heritage of New Zealand entries, right? How did that happen?
No, we are the heritage. Yeah. Well, it sort of started when like Robot Combat in New Zealand started when I was in university. We had a robotics club that did other sort of robotic stuff, but BattleBots came on. I think it was BattleBots 2016 or 2015, the first year on ABC. And someone bought it and we're like, oh, this is so cool, So we used to book out the lecture theatre at the university every week. All come together, watch it, get the popcorn and stuff, and we get real into it. And after that first year, we thought we could give that a crack, we could give it a go. I reckon we'd be all right at that. So we applied for BattleBots 2016 with the robot. Didn't get in, thankfully. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing, the selection committee. But from there we built on it. And we as a university club, we created a program called Mini Robot Rumble, which was for school kids, and we sort of used that to get funding to build the Beetle Arena we have now, and it's sort of just grown from there. Yeah.
As a direct result of your success, then.
Not really. As a direct result of us watching BattleBots in the lecture theatre. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Excellent. We're entering what's labelled the Krusty Grab section on the questions now, which I love. The first one.
You guys are going deep to bring back Krusty Grab.
It was as soon as I found out,
special breed of nerd.
100%. As soon as we found out, the end game podcast, I was like, right, Krusty Grab. I've got to find out what's happened.
We've got to know all the deets. We remember pre-pandemic.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
It is. But first question from friend of the podcast, Rob Weston, is, and from Joe Brown as well, your teammate, Sam. Whatever happened to Krusty Grab, and do you ever plan on using it in the future?
Yeah. So I guess for the listeners who aren't as deep as you guys, the Krusty Grab is a lifter robot we built, and we took it to Orlando Maker Fair, I think like 2019, or it must have been 2019, just before the pandemic. And it sort of had the first. It was a test bed for in-game, really. So we built it to try get our drive dialed in, test some forks and things like that. It was sort of the first time we ran the forks before the 2020 season of BattleBots. So with that context, I guess we still have it. I've got two of them sitting in our event space, ready to be reassembled. So what we're going to do with the Krusty Grab is it's probably never going to come to BattleBots. But it's getting a bit outdated now, design-wise. You've got the Claw Vipers and things like that are just doing what the Krusty Grab tried to do, but better. So there's no point bringing it to get it smashed up. But we will run it in our new arena in New Zealand, do some featherweight fights, not featherweight, sportsman fights. Because that new arena is designed for full combat featherweights, but also sportsman heavyweights, sort of like Orlando Maker Fair does. So
nice.
We've still got it. We'll use it for demonstrations, things like that. But I think it's sort of competitive run in a real weight class is probably over now. Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, the field has gone up exponentially since 2019, 2020, so that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that the legacy of the forks and like the drivetrains lives on in the end game from there.
Yeah, we actually learned quite a lot in that event. Sort of, we weren't really thinking of using big forks on the end game until we took the Krusty Grab, and then we were like, hold on, we could just the Krusty Grab. We're trying to be Bite Force at the time. The Krusty Grab's forks could outreach Bite Force. Maybe we could just pick it up and throw it out of the arena. And then we're like, hold on, why don't we just put it on the front of end game, and then we'll pick them up and just smash them with the weapon. So that's sort of where the idea came from. Was from the Krusty Grab. So it's like building new robots gives you new ideas. Makes your main robot better. So yeah,
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
It helps as well. It's you can, as you said, you can just use it basically anyway. It's not going to persify because obviously it doesn't have the big spinny thing at the front. Question from Connor Smith 1325 on YouTube. How do you think Krusty Grab would have fared in the 2020 season had it entered?
Yeah, I like to think it would have done okay. I don't know if it would have been top 8 or top 16 or anything like that, but it has the same internals as in-game. It's got the same redundancy built into it. Obviously it's got the long forks, and back then that was sort of the pinnacle of the ground game. So I feel like the Krusty Grab would have done as good a job as anyone is getting under people as in-game did. But the real sort of like the purpose of the Krusty Grab which is another reason we can't bring it back. Is it was supposed to be essentially do what vertical spinners do, but better. So vertical spinners try to get underneath you and smash you, where the crusty grab could get underneath you and in one grab throw you out of the arena, like where the doors are.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole point. We're like, if we just need to win the ground game once and then we win the whole game, we just pick them up and put them outside, and it should be easy. So I think it would have done all right. I imagine it would have hit some sort of big spinner along the way and been smashed up, but yeah, I think it had the internals and maybe a good strategy for the time. So yeah.
So the ground game wasn't kind of as prevalent as it is now with everyone having the long fork. So
and the sneeze guards.
Well, exactly. The arena's kind of evolved away from that style of robot as well, hasn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. So it would pick someone up now and have nowhere to put them. Where in 2020 it would have picked someone up and instantly won the fight. Was the idea? Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I get the honour of going on to what is referred to here as the Taylor Swift section, which is we're firmly down the rabbit hole now. Ivan Roy on Facebook asks, "What were the origins behind naming your robot Endgame? How did the name come about?" And that sort of links into I'm going to mispronounce this. I think it's Milk Buns on YouTube.
That's about right. That's about right on there.
Who asks, was Endgame actually named after the Taylor Swift song, or is that just a coincidence?
So in-game, Shane, the guy on our team with the big sort of red foo hair, the big, what do you call it, afro, he had a robot in Vex Robotics called In-Game, sort of the year before we did BattleBots. And we were like, oh, that's a cool name, you know? Can we steal the name and use it? And he was like, yeah, all good. And he'd named that after Rise Against song because he's into that sort of music. And so I was like, well, we're gonna name ours after the Taylor Swift song. So sort of it gets its origin from both ways. You know, Shane and Nick will tell you that it's the Rise Against song. I tell you it's the Taylor Swift song because that's the way it's spelled. But yeah.
Okay. I'll let you take the next one, David, because I'll save the next one for me.
That's perfectly fair. So Hanzo on Twitter asks, "Do you have any Era Tour tickets? And have you seen Taylor Swift yet at concert?"
I've seen Taylor Swift, but not the Eras tour. I went to Red about 10 years ago, so that was awesome. Unfortunately, she's not coming to New Zealand, so for us, we'd have to fly to Australia. It was like 50-50 whether we do it. You know, it was almost like an impulse: buy the tickets, buy the flights, and off we go. But decided against it, so need to save the money for building robots.
That's perfectly fair considering the cost of tickets.
I mean, I said myself and my wife are going, and it cost me at least one kidney. So we'll go from there.
I thought you were going to just stop at kid. And I was concerned for January.
Well. But the last question does actually come from my wife, and I've always promised her, if ever we interviewed Endgame, I would ask, which era is your favourite?
I think probably the Reputation era.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a little bit different, you know. Like I feel like it was a transition era.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, 100%.
That's where I'd be sitting.
That's awesome. Best era. We'll have some more questions later on, but in the meantime, let's talk about some fights, shall we? So, I mean, we start off with yourself taking on Gary Jin and free shipping.
I still don't know what he's doing here, but I'm so glad he
I don't think Gary knows what he's doing here. What, like...
I sort of see it. I sort of see the setup idea. Because it's like a similar setup idea that Mad Catter had against Riptide, isn't it? Sort of try and tip you over and then attack from there, but...
Because he had one of these lower wedges and one regular wedgelet, right?
One low, one high,
I did appreciate his tactic of just drive straight at you and see what happened at the start, and it worked for a second or two. Yeah, it did work, and then as the fight kind of gradually wore on, you know, you see what Endgame's good at is just delivering those hits over and over and over again. How concerned were you? You know, given you kind of alluded it in the interview afterwards. You know, Gary is such an experienced driver; he knows what he's doing with this robot. He's run it for years. Was there a concern for you?
There's always a concern, we're always worried. Sometimes you lose to a pizza, so always got to bring your A game into the fight. So we look at the front of free shipping and we think, oh, there's no way that's going to get under us, and then in the first set they do. So like we need to we need to go frame by frame and see what happened there. But yeah, I mean, no matter what robot you're playing, there's always going to be like a little bit of concern. I think free shipping doesn't have the big spinner damage that a lot of robots do. So for us, it's not like we're going to get smacked and die immediately. We were fairly confident it would at least take a little while. So that gives us time to sort of, oh, that first exchange didn't go well, so we'll just try something a little bit different.
It
But
worked out, definitely. I think,
yeah,
as well as that, like I think one of the kind of bigger wedge pontoon at the front, like I think it did obscure their spinner. It was kind of above it. It looked like anyway.
mhm,
So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
yeah. Other than that, though,
Was there
fairly
any
s-
reason
go
for
on.
like running less forks on endgame for that fight? Because it's noticeable gaps in like the front end compared to like the normal kind of piano keys that we've kind of got used to for this year.
Mm. Yeah, so this was like a year ago, so I'm struggling to remember entirely.
Understandable.
But I
All
We've
mean,
been
good.
through
I
the
can go
same
through
thing.
I can go through the
Yeah.
thought process with you. So it would have been they don't have forks, they run fat pontoons on the front, so we just need to be skinnier than them. And actually, often it's better to have a little bit of a gap. I'm telling you all our ground game secrets, but sometimes it's better to have a little bit of a gap because it means that if they do get underneath one of your wedgelets, your other ones are more effective if you turn. So I'm imagining we were thinking something along those lines. And then if we only put every second one in, maybe we can run the bigger weapon because we hadn't run it all season. We've got three different weapon weights, and we've been running the lightest one all year. So it's probably like, oh, we could run the fat one, or something like that. If we have a little bit more weight. So
Yeah,
or
fair enough.
or a stronger top plate. We've got different options for everything. Actually,
Yeah.
I think it would have been a stronger top plate. Because with the Golden Bolt, we ran the base configuration for all the fights because we didn't know what the next fight would be, and we had to turn around so quickly.
Mm.
So now, yeah, I'm remembering now. We decided to run the lightest weapon on. We had two robots fully built, and we set them both up with the lightest weapon, so we could put the wedges on if we needed to, or and things like that. So yeah.
Understandable. I mean, this is the one recording where it's literally all done in one day. Like as of the rest of us, like, oh yeah, it's definitely done in one day. It's definitely done in one day. It's not done. It's not done in one day.
No, the Golden
But
Bolt
this was.
definitely is done in one day.
It's definitely the last day of recording, and it is the craziest day of recording.
Yeah, lots of
Mhm.
fights to cram into not very long at all.
Yeah.
A little bit of emotion at the end as well for Gary, which was really heartwarming and touching to see. The fact that since BattleBots has come back, he hasn't really had a robot like this where he can be at that kind of apex of the sport again. He's had it for so many years with Original Sin, and finally coming back and being a threat again with this version of free shipping is lovely to see. And it was
So
great to see
the
him.
emotions in the whole
Yeah.
building were incredible. Everyone adores Gary, and the chanting for Gary whenever he appeared was loud and frequent. It was really wonderful. Like you, I'm glad to see free shipping here at this stage. I again don't know how it happened, but I'm glad that it did.
We don't question how the brackets happened. Okay, we know we'll get onto that in the next fight. But,
Yeah.
We will indeed. We will indeed. But yep, it's a shame to see free shipping go at this stage. But when you come up against one of the very best, you kind of have to be at the top of your game. And I don't think free shipping is quite there yet. They've obviously made a stark improvement with this one, but there's still a little bit to go to be at that kind of very, very top table. Fight 2. Shreddit Bro and SawBlaze. Jack, be honest with me. How pleased were you to see Shreddit Bro go out, knowing you didn't have to fight another drum again?
Well, the day before the bracket came out, we're like, oh, what's the bet we're going to get a drum first round?
Get Shreddit Bro straight out the bat.
Shreddit Bro's looking pretty good right now. So
Absolutely.
no, I do want to play more drums just so we get some practice. So but
completely
and
fair.
also obviously what we wanted was us to go through the bracket and SawBlaze to go through the bracket so we could beat them. That's what we were hoping for, or at least have a go at them because they're the champion. So yeah, we're happy that they got through on that one.
it's a very strange fight. I think SawBlaze's whole run is full of strange fights in this kind of episode.
Yeah.
It starts off with just obviously, textbook Jameson goes, scooping up Shreddit Bro, down comes the hammer saw, go through to the top plate, no problem. And then, the second big smack they get, all the magic smoke comes out.
He's
And
good at finding them
War,
batteries.
Yeah.
He's so good at finding those batteries.
He's a wily guy, isn't he, that Jameson go? He's a...
And then they get
Anybody would
stuck.
think he's like a giant nut winner,
You
Like,
think?
Well, it was strange that. But yeah, then they get
That
stuck.
guy might do something good someday.
Yeah,
He's going places.
I mean, I remember... I was going to say, I remember seeing this fight. I remember seeing up to a certain point, and then the fog happens, and then you see nothing.
I love how as well, because like most fights like this, you get stuck in the top plate, eventually they'll come in and say, oh, we'll separate you then, and we'll carry on. They obviously can't do that because Shreddit Bro is
still smoking.
It's in the process of just catching fire and, having all sorts of electrical problems, so it ends up being a double KO, which is weird.
It's the only one for this year, as far as I recall.
May have been. It's
long time
as
ago.
we've said. It's been
now.
over a year since recording, and it's been a while since the main series came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, Shreddit just seems a little bit unhappy in this fight. Full stop. Like it didn't seem to be spinning up to full speed.
No.
Yeah, to be fair, that they had just made a Cinderella run through their bracket,
Got
having had
smacked up by Valkyrie, and then have to fight SawBlaze.
SawBlaze, the giant nut winner. You remember him? He's just won the big prize. Yeah,
that's right. You know him from Norwalk. It's all good. This was a full-on Norwalk fight, really.
Yeah,
it was.
That's true. Very true.
And JMO got the dub.
Yep,
as he is one to do. As we said, kind of an amazing Cinderella story for Shreddit Bro, but it's one thing beating the robots they beat to get there, but then you come, as I kind of alluded to earlier with free shipping, you come up against a robot of that really high elite level, and there's not a whole lot you can do.
I'm watching it here, and they do dislodge the flamethrower pipe.
They do. Well, I have stuff to say about that flamethrower pipe later on. We'll save that for a certain fight.
There's a lot of things to discuss
on.
About that one later on in that fight.
But the fight was kind of fairly one-sided. Should we move on to fight 3?
It was just so easily scooped up.
It was.
It's so small.
It's the right design as well. It's nice and low and flat, and that's kind of music to James' ears.
On top and
100%.
Stuff. Yeah.
We'll save that. Some more SawBlaze chat for later. In the meantime, though, fight 3. The only 2 non-champions in the field, Jackpot and Whiplash.
This was an interesting fight.
Well, Jackie, I'd kind of did you have one eye on this fight, thinking, who would you have rather fought?
Yeah, I don't know if we'd rather fought either of them. They're both pretty scary robots. Ace in particular had, come in clutch in the previous bracket, so we're like, we don't really know how to handle that. And Whiplash now has a whole array of front end options, so we don't have the advantage we had on them last time. So I think either way we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But as soon as we won that first fight, it's the same configuration for us, so we were just back to the pits. It didn't matter how we set up the robot, which is the sort of main issue of the day. So yeah,
nice and easy to kind of just turn it around and straight back in the arena, just charge the batteries, I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to ask on that, actually. I know it's not really to do with this fight, but did you have the stipulation in this, because it's an all-day, one-day event, the armor setups and configs you lock in at the start of the day, you just run with them throughout, or was that just a choice of the team?
So we obviously knew our first fight at the start of the day, so we prepared for that one, and we had 2 full end games ready to go, so we could see, even at the start of the day, we were either going to play Jackpot or Whiplash if we won the first fight. And both of them are sort of forky, vert issues sort of thing. So it's the same sort of configuration. So I think by the time we actually had our free shipping fight, we had the second robot ready for whoever we're going to play next. And then the idea was that, now you've got all day to prepare that first one again for the final fight, whatever that is. So you can strip that down, you can do a full rebuild and have it completely fresh rather than trying to turn it around in the hour you actually got. So we sort of create ourselves more time, almost a full day to rebuild that robot. Yeah.
Useful thing to have. In terms of this fight, I think another weird one where Jackpot gets that perfect shot on the wheel like nut on the front end.
Yeah.
And despite that, Whiplash just doesn't care and just dominates on
Carries
3
on.
wheels. It just
It
doesn't
carries
care.
I mean, the best issue.
It didn't even look like the wheel fell off.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, we all know how good of a driver Matt is, but like, my goodness, he really, really was just driving it like he stole it.
It's a really good fight, this one. I mean,
back and forth fight.
Yeah, definitely. Whiplash by the end of the fight with the lids both peeled back,
Oh, my
sort of going,
goodness.
hey, now, come on.
It's the huge setup, to defend itself. Like,
Yeah, that's it.
It's a shame
he
the
does
lift didn't
so
work,
well.
right? It's like
Yeah.
at all, and I think that's probably what swings it. Like at no point does he use the weapon. So
It doesn't go full stop.
that limits you already, doesn't it?
Damage, he didn't have the disc on, so he was going more for control and
Need
aggression.
to
And
break the weapon, essentially. Like,
yeah,
and
the
that
only
just wasn't
damage
happening.
that managed to happen was they fed Ace,
Poor Ace,
into the weapon, and that was kind of it. Whiplash drove stupendously well throughout this fight, but yeah, they were on the back foot from damage category anyway. Obviously, it's not the only category, but
It's the one that counts, doesn't it? Really, I suppose.
Yeah.
that's where the big points are.
Yeah. Credit to Jackpot as well. You can only beat what's in front of you, and they, as much as they were bullied around the arena a little bit, they got the damage points, as we said. They knocked a wheel off. The weapon didn't
They did
work.
what
for
they needed to
Whiplash.
do at the end
Interesting,
of the
it was a split decision though.
Yeah, I can see why it was given.
Not the only split of the evening, but
no, we'll get to that one as well. That's a contentious one. I've got thoughts about that, but
I've got notes about that.
okay, we'll get to that later. But as I said, yeah, Jackpot going through. Whiplash doesn't get the rematch with Endgame that they might have wanted, but a new opponent for you later on, Jack. We'll talk about that later. Our last first round fight, though. I mean, Jevon and David, do you have thoughts on this one?
The wheel fell off.
It did.
We had our, obviously, long-time listeners of the podcast will know that we had our little book of shame and misery, the predictions for this year, and myself and David were split on this one. David,
Were you? Is it because David's favourite robot is Tantrum and
No, not at all.
Your favourite is
and I really like the Ripperoni. Yeah.
Italians everywhere hate you now.
Well, once again, the intros from Ripperoni were mad, just bringing your own bit of ham along as well.
That was there in the main season. Like, that thing was like way smaller, and it shrank.
I think they used some of it.
They must have eaten it.
They might have consumed some of it. It's not there to cool the robot down. We know that's different stuff.
Perhaps it heated their hot tub. Who knows?
Who knows? Now,
they used it as a cover for the pool.
Another kind of important question for Jack here. By proxy, how happy were you to see Ripperoni go out and not have to fight it again?
I was more happy to see Tantrum go out because we didn't want to fight them again.
I mean, you fought them enough times already at this point, right?
Yeah. But yeah, no, Ripperoni obviously was a very scary robot all season. They sort of come in, everyone's like, it's a funny pizza, and then they beat in-game, and then they win their bracket. So, it's nothing to be underestimated, and it's a huge weapon, driven well, built well when they remember to tighten the wheel. But yeah. One less big spinning weapon in the bracket's probably good for us. Yeah.
I mean, I think during the fight as well, I mean, completely understandably, Dylan is so careful with where he puts Tantrum.
Is on it on his driving game as well.
Does not put that robot anywhere near the weapon. He's
they don't want to break it.
Well, no, but like the fight was.
Well, as soon as
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as soon as the wheel falls off Ripperoni, as long as you don't do anything stupid, you win, right? So all he needs to do is pretend to engage for 3 minutes, and they get the win, and that's going to be the best outcome for them for the tournament, right? So awesome driving, very strategic, yeah.
So one for the purist, I think. One for the purist.
I mean, it's still funny just watching Ripperoni bounce around, like doing even more damage.
Fred driving that thing on one wheel just is an absolute maniac, isn't he? He's crazy. What a guy.
God love him.
I mean, that kind of there's not much fight to talk about because, as Jack kind of alluded to, Tantrum is very tactical. They don't really go in for.
They've learned after catching Gigabyte like last year that it's not wise to do that.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Leave the big scary. it ends Ripperoni's first run in BattleBots. What a story! I mean, again, it is silly pizza robot, but it has that amazing kind of counter gyro, which was working exceptionally well. They pulled off the upset against Endgame, as we talked about and alluded to.
I think as far as your sort of quote-unquote meme robots, this has to be the best one out there. Like, it comes into the competition, it smashes everything up, it beats a former champion, it runs the bracket, it finishes by throwing a wheel off. It's like, you couldn't hope for better.
To elaborate.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to elaborate, leaves.
Yeah.
Returns to hot tub. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite the peculiar beast, isn't it, Ripperoni? But
I went into this season, I really didn't like the look of Ripperoni. I'll be very honest. I thought it's completely uneven. I don't like the asymmetry of it. It's a silly idea. It's the funny pizza robot. And I am glad to be proven wrong, because I have fallen in love with this thing. It can stay. It can come back any time. Always welcome.
And I'm sure it will. Tantrum progresses. We'll get to the fight with SawBlaze a bit later on, but
yes, we will.
In fact, it's
the next fight.
It's the next fight.
Let me just turn over in my book.
Boy.
Let's talk about the main fight first.
So, SawBlaze dominates for 2 minutes. The last minute, Tantrum really comes back into it. Eventually starts getting to the sides of SawBlaze and smacking those forks. SawBlaze then recomposes, takes the other kind of Tegris lid off, and peels the front armor away, and then Tantrum gets high-centered. J-Mo goes in for one more attack, loosens Tantrum, and is on its head.
And cannot self-right.
Critically cannot self-right.
Now, we were not well, as staying for many weeks, but we were well enough to keep an eye on that clock. And so, what the audience may not know is that this fight was appealed.
Ooh.
It's not in the episode.
Oh, was it?
It is in the Seems Reasonable Robotics Facebook, YouTube video, though. Mm-hmm. So check that out after this.
Yes. So, here are the notes that I made at recording. SawBlaze hit the floor and bounced over at 0:23, 0:22, round about that time.
Ooh.
SawBlaze's arm was down at that point. The count starts on J-Mo and SawBlaze at about 12-11 seconds. The count ends on the buzzer. So, by the word of the written rules, it's by judges, not judges, by refs count, not by real time.
The clock, yes, correct.
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly 20 seconds. It wasn't exactly a 10-second count out, but that is what I believe was appealed. So both teams reviewed the cards for 15 minutes or so, and nothing came of the review because the appeal wasn't anything to do with a decision, it was to do with refs, and you cannot appeal
the refs. I see.
Here endeth the notes for this fight.
So there is no controversy, it is just a...
There's none.
There
is, but there's not. Yeah. It's all on
by the letter of the law. This is a correct decision.
Everything is correct on that. I mean, we spoke to Alex and Ginger after recording anyway, and got confirmation from this as well. So we know everything was fine on it.
So if you hear anywhere online, you've heard it from us here. It's all legal. Everything is fine, and I believe Team Tantrum actually retracted their own appeal.
They did, yes.
Okay.
It wasn't thrown out. It was they went, okay, fair, and took it back. So, there's my notes.
As a competitor of either of these two eventually, or what could have been your opponent, Jack, I mean, what was your kind of thought watching the fight? You must have had some kind of, I don't know if were you before or after this fight, or what was going on?
I think we were just after it. But that 15 minutes or 40 minutes where it's getting appealed is sort of killer, for these teams and for us. Because like we said in the episode, we were going to, either reuse that first robot if we played Tantrum, or we were going to rebuild a brand new robot in an hour and a half to play, SawBlaze. So we lose 40 minutes of that. It hurts a lot. So obviously, we wanted to play SawBlaze. We played Tantrum 3 times now. So our fourth match with them is sort of like eventually they're going to beat us. So and we've done it so many times. You're not going to really see anything new. So and the SawBlaze fight last season was a bit lackluster. So we were hoping for the SawBlaze fight there.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, as well as the SawBlaze fights you've had have been like. I mean, you had the one years ago with Endgame 1, and it was 2 very different robots. And obviously, the last season's fight was, as you say, so quick, and it wasn't really a fight. It was a one and you're done. And Tantrum you fought 3 times in the space of 18 months. Yeah, so it would have been nice to do something different. Yeah. This could, as far as we're aware, be Tantrum's last action.
Well, I believe it will be their. They've already had their last appearance in the regular season of BattleBots. I believe Tantrum may come back for future Golden Bolts.
It's pretty much just a never say never on that one. Like if they want to still work on it, they will work on it. It's just there's a lot of ideas they want to do right now, and the twins is currently the fun idea right now. So fair play to them for going for it, and excited to see what happens. Really.
And if it is the last time we see Tantrum, we'll always remember the fact that it's gone from being a literal burger flipper to a BattleBots champion, and I think that's a really cool thing. That
it's a little angry boy that could.
Little speed bump. SawBlaze winning on a split decision as well. I mean, I'm surprised it was split because the fight was...
That was a bit weird.
I was like, it's fairly cut and dry that SawBlaze has won the match, so if you're not going to deem it... Well, anyway.
That was the other thing.
Well, I guess the argument could be...
Tantrum's still working, I guess.
And I mean, Tantrum has to win damage, whatever it's 7-0, right? Is it 7 or 5? 5-0.
5, yeah.
Like, so that would be my argument if I was going to appeal it, because SawBlaze doesn't work at all. So how can
its functionality has been reduced somewhat?
It's like the wheels are spinning, but they're not touching anything right now, and that's about it. That was actually something that came out of the YouTube video, that they might be doing something with the rules to. If like a robot is stuck like that at the very end, they might write the robot and just to do functionality to show, okay, it would be moving if it wasn't stuck like this. So keep an eye out on the rules, I guess.
I mean, for certain teams, like SawBlaze, for example, you can see if it's moving because they've got lettering on the tyres, and if that looks like a blur, then you know the wheels are moving. Obviously, it's difficult on some other robots who you can't see.
Well, I mean, if it's Copperhead, for example, it's whatever chunk from a previous fight was taken out of a huge tyre. And
I could see that chunk going around. But it's interesting. Obviously, the damage matrix is what it is. Tantrum was pretty severely damaged in the armour category. Weapon of SawBlaze counts for more damage, basically, so... It's Tantrum, I think, just sways the damage categories, but I don't think it sways control.
Or aggression.
I'm not sure
Despite the best interests, it's very scoopable.
It is.
It does mean they won all, though, so...
It does, so, yeah.
Decider, let's go.
We'll wait for that on another time, maybe. So, Fight 2 for Endgame is Jackpot. Now, you've already alluded to the issue of the ace. Talk us through what your kind of thoughts were going into this fight, Jack, because Jackpot's no joke. Yeah.
We sort of sat down as a team before we do every fight, but we're like, what are we going to do? And we were like, we're just going to ignore ace. We're just going to pretend it's not there and try and hit the big robot. And it sort of got in the way a bit, and Jackpot wasn't able to capitalize on that because I think they were carrying damage from previous fights and stuff like that. But I think, I'm not sure we'd do that again. But yeah, we were just like, we're just going to pretend that we're just fighting the big robot and see what happens. And, in the end, Ace sort of got in the way and got booted out. And that's when we got the big hit on the big boy too. So, yeah.
Just seeing Ace disintegrate into 1,000 pieces as you hit it was something special.
Yeah.
I believe Jackpot loses the weapon before that. It's certainly not
It's
spinning.
very early on, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like I know Jeff's been saying they've been having spin up issues like all tournament long. So it's not surprising that it's finally given up the ghost.
I find confusing, however, at this point, and I know that the arms are there for self-writing purposes, but they also do have the forky bits on the front, and if you see weapons gone down, I would start to maybe lead with those forks, unless he knew that they weren't getting underneath.
You know, Endgame's got like the best ground game in the competition, right?
I know, but you try something, surely. Anything.
You got to give it a go.
Yeah.
I also wonder if the lifter wasn't working. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just noticed
because they didn't self-ride as well, right? So maybe they couldn't move it.
It's just
I don't know.
All weapon systems down, maybe.
Possibly.
Who knows?
But either way, they're out.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely probably a nicer solution for you guys, knowing that you didn't get any real damage in this one as well, because the weapon didn't spin for Jackpot.
They're going to be a scary robot next year, though. They've done a lot of practice at Proving Grounds, and I'm sure they've got everything dialed in. So I'll be real interested to see how they do next year. Yeah,
I mean, they
definitely
up until this year they had gone undefeated in pre-season fights, and then done kind of rough in the bracket. And this year they had their upsetting year where they didn't quite do as well as that.
Until this tournament, and then they've done really well.
And now you've got to think, and with all the Proving Grounds and everything, you've got to think they're going to be coming
Jeff's
back.
had a lot of time to kind of practice it. I mean, he alluded to it on the podcast a few weeks back. So,
yeah, he is the supreme ruler after all. We're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. We're going to move on immediately.
That's a whole nother podcast.
It is indeed. We
can
talk
in the
cutting
room floor.
No, that's staying in. We're keeping it in.
Hey, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. But there was something alluded to at the end of this fight with your interview where you kind of say, we've got to go right now. And did you actually just disappear off the set immediately? Was that an actual thing that happened?
Yeah, because that fight, BattleBots is, for those who don't know, BattleBots is filmed in 2 sessions a day. So the first session, and each session is like 3 hours long or 2.5 hours long.
2.5 to 3, about that.
Like,
depending on lipo fires, really.
Yeah. So our fight was the second fight of the session. So SawBlaze and Tantrum had played. So we're already like an hour into the session, and then we've got to come back out in an hour's time with a new robot, And we had to go, and we literally had to rebuild a whole end game out of magnesium. So that's why we're like, we just got to go. Sorry, man. Like, we need the extra 5 minutes here. Like,
catch you in the pub afterwards. It's all good. Like,
yeah. Like, you guys are awesome, but we've really got to go. Yeah.
I mean, and go, you did. You came back with, as you said, the magnesium end game for your fight with SawBlaze. Where did the idea come from initially? Because obviously magnesium is let's call it a precious metal. It's not exactly a common usage in fighting robots, right?
Yeah. So we use magnesium a lot in in-game. Basically any internal member is magnesium. So things that hold our motors, bracing on the inside, things like that. Anywhere that we don't think is going to get hit. So like we said on the show, magnesium is a little bit weaker. I think we may have talked it up a little bit on how weak it is, but there's different grades of aluminium. It's sort of like as strong as the grade of aluminium we normally use, but it fails in a brittle way. So when it breaks, it cracks rather than bends. So it's not great if you're planning on getting hit. So like normally the things like the sides of the robot are aluminium, the base plate's always magnesium, the top plate's normally magnesium, and things like the wedgelet mounting normally aluminium. So and the weapon towers. So we went back and, last year we were like, we needed an option for playing overhead hammer saws. And we looked at things like when Magcata played SawBlaze, they had steel on top of their robot. And SawBlaze went through it. They didn't go through it far, but they ripped it off. They the reason it came off the robot is because all the mounting bolts shared, right? So that's why we went with the design that actually wrapped the whole robot. So if SawBlaze hit us, it would be supported by itself and it wouldn't be held by the bolts. So that's why it's got those lips around the edges with a little bit of rubber mounting. to absorb the impact. So that full sheet of hard ox steel, weighs about, I think it was like 20 kilos, which is what, 50 pounds. So we got to find the weight for that from somewhere. So that's why we had, I think we had one entire in game that was fully magnesium that we could assemble if we wanted to, just to make that weight. Yeah.
The SawBlaze special.
Yeah, yeah.
We did have a question from Matt Hedger on Facebook. Also runs the amazingly named podcast My Girlfriend Doesn't Like Robots. Was there any other potential SawBlaze setups, or was it always just going to be all in on the magnesium frame? Was there any kind of other options you spitballed before that?
No, this year that was our setup for SawBlaze. So like the team knew if we're playing SawBlaze, this is what we're going to do. And we knew that months before we got to BattleBots. So we were excited to be able to try it. We've got these setups for all different sorts of robots. We've got the SawBlaze one, we've got the one for playing verts and horizontals, and the one for huge, and all these things. So it's really exciting. The first time you get to use it, it's like, yeah, we get to do it. Yeah.
We await the huge one, maybe in World Championship 8.
I'm sure at this point, the fact that Huge had such a good run, I'm sure you're almost certain to get them at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, our cow catcher is going to be great. Yeah.
Jonathan absolutely shaking at the thought of it.
Yeah.
You alluded to the start of this kind of podcast, the fact that you wanted to fight SawBlaze because they are, as you said, the current champion, but also the two fights previously, one was a bit inconclusive. It was just the one hit and done, and obviously the other one was years ago. How happy were you that it actually ended up materializing that you were going to fight them?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, we're trying to be at the top of the sport. So, when someone else is at the top, you want to fight them. You want to either beat them and, put yourself back at the top, or lose to them and work out why they're at the top and you're not, So, either way, we're happy to play who's at the top, because we're either going to learn and come back next year stronger, or, we're going to do it right. So, That's why we want to play SawBlaze. That's why we want to play the tantrums after they win and things like that. Because obviously they've done something right this season, and we want to see what that is. Yeah, and actually, if you look at going back deeper again, back when in-game first started, I think we had the longest losing streak in BattleBots history, and we came out of that losing streak and won the Giant Nut. So every time we lost a fight, we were learning. So. And that's because we weren't playing, the low tier robots at that time for some reason. And I think it's because in my very first producer call with BattleBots, I said I don't want to play squishy robots. I want to play the top guys.
Well,
we're not here to. Yeah.
Ultimately, you had won a competition before that. You won FMB, didn't you, with Death Toll way back when?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean,
you had a bit of pedigree, right? So you still have some pedigree coming in.
Yeah, but even right from the start, we wanted to play the top people because we want to join them, and you're not going to get there by playing people you always beat, So when we get an opportunity to play people who have won the Giant Nut or come through their brackets like this, it's really great as a learning experience for us,
I did think it made for great TV back in the. Remember the fight you had against Son of Boyachi, which was I think 1 or 2 hits, but explosive and just great TV magic because they put 2 reasonably high kinetic energy weapons against each other, and it made an awesome fight.
Fight, and like that fight, we learned a lot. Like it was one hit and you lose, but we lost our receiver. And then some people Jackpot on this episode were like, oh, we lost our receiver. It's sort of like bad luck, But there's no, I don't believe there's no luck in the BattleBots. You control every part of your robot. If you have a receiver, you need to engineer out the failures. We've got 14 receivers in the robot for that reason. After that fight, and things like that. So, it's like you learn little things like that along the way. It's your first year. Well, it was our first year. The receiver died. Well, there's nothing we can do about it right now. But next year we'll come back maybe with 2, and then the next year we come back with 14. So yeah,
it just follows along the whole thing of you learn more from your defeats, if anything, from your victories, and just it helps
I've
build
learned
robot.
loads through losing with my beetle weight, and one day I'll get a win.
Look, once you've got that, Jevon, you're going to be unbeatable.
Okay, I'm running every tournament there is.
Exactly.
The new end boss.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah.
But going into this fight, there's a very important thing that they cut from this fight,
and they've done it really cleanly. It's possibly the cleanest. I'll spoil it. It's the cleanest unstick I've seen.
Yeah.
And it was not, we saw it.
It was not clean to unstick it.
You got your fork through the flamethrower hole, and I mean, TV editing is always, very, very cleverly done, but
they make it look in the edit like it just slipped straight out, and they were there for a good 10-15 minutes trying to free that fork.
Yeah. So the barb on the fork went through the flamethrower hole, which was actually slightly smaller than the barb, we think. So it's sort of like pushed through, flex the metal, because there's so much force when these things come together. We just couldn't pull it back out. I can't remember what they did in the end. I think they might have had to take SawBlaze's flamethrower off and then pull the fork out and then put the flamethrower back on or something like that. But it would make quite sense for how long it took.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. They were like, "Can we chop the fork?" And we're like, "Can't chop the fork."
Kind of need that for the rest of the night.
That would be somewhat noticeable.
It's sort of useful.
It just goes in later on. It's just been duct taped back in place for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
It's like the robot forks from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of one of those unfortunate things where you sort of, a break in the fight does sort of affect it, I think. Because at that stage we're losing, that sort of gave us a chance to take a breather and go, okay, that wasn't working. What's something else we can try?
Sort of like a red flag.
I feel for SawBlaze in that regard, but
it gives you that restart period.
Yeah, just sort of reevaluate. That first minute didn't go exactly how we wanted it to, so we'll try something different. But it's the way the game works. So you just got to take advantage of it when you can. And I'm sure SawBlaze had the same thing. That was going well. What was going well? Can we keep doing that? Have that sort of discussion in the break as well.
Essentially,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, as you kind of alluded to, you weren't winning the first initial exchanges. You got put up on the screws. But as soon as the unstick happens, it is not exactly one-way traffic, but it's near enough. I mean, you properly gave SawBlaze a beasting.
Yeah, so like when we played SawBlaze, we sort of had two strategies. The first one was to try and outreach them and try slip our forks down the gaps in their piano keys. They had a couple of gaps, I think. So we tried that. I think it was like maybe the first or second exchange we actually got stuck. So when SawBlaze was driving us around, I feel like they're winning a lot of control, but really that's because we're stuck to them. So like I don't feel like we're losing quite as badly as it may have looked, but because they happened to be on the ground and we were stuck to them, we couldn't escape. So, and they took full advantage of that. And I guess chose not to swing their weapon into our weapon, which might have been wise, might have cost them the match, if they did get a good hit at that time. But that's a decision you make. But and the second strategy was to ignore the forks and try and use the wedgelets to get under their wedgelets. So using a driving strategy for that instead. So I think after the break, we sort of switched to that strategy and it worked a lot better. But I think if we'd gotten off SawBlaze, we would have switched to that strategy anyway, because it was one of those ones we discussed. So, yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, it paid off. I mean, as I said, SawBlaze, I think I don't remember if it was the kind of immediately after the separation or before that, but it like there was one point where they kind of had you and they tried to chop one of the forks off. And I think that was the only time really we saw.
I think it might have been just after.
Yeah.
It sort of swung down in front of us, right?
Yeah.
I think, like sort of where our wedgelets are. Yeah.
Absolutely. And after that point, it was just, as I said, one-way traffic, and Endgame is your winner. Endgame takes a second golden bolt. And how did you have to reinforce the trophy cabinet at this point? Is it starting to get starting to bow in the middle?
we need a trophy cabinet. They sort of just sit in their workshop at the moment. So it's 130 pounds, all the trophies together. So there's a lot of hardware there.
Absolutely. You ain't
So essentially, you need 3 more, and then you've got just another setup sorted. You know, that's the new robot. It's just
Yeah.
enough.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Well, I have a couple more questions for you, Jack, and then we'll let you go. The first one comes from Jack. I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. Jack Sherry. I've tried. I'm really sorry.
Mm-hmm.
What improvements do you have planned for Endgame next year? And do you have a new anti-drum setup in the works, given your struggles with them recently?
Yeah, so we do have an anti-drum set up in the works. I don't really want to go into it, spoil it
Understandable.
for all the other drum players, but we've got new ideas that we're going to try. Obviously, the things we have been trying not really been working, so going a different direction on that. So yeah, expect something new if we have to play a Copperhead or a Minotaur or a Shreddit Bro next year. Aside from that, that's going to be a big improvement that we'll bring. When we played Copperhead this year, our bearings in the weapon exploded, so we've got a fix for that as well, which will hopefully work. We haven't had an opportunity to test it yet. I think some of it's been manufactured, but sort of waiting for to go ahead on BattleBots. And hopefully we'll get that over to proving ground sometime and give it a real test.
Wow.
We need to work out the logistics of that. So a few small improvements, better front end again. We'll go lower and hopefully less stuck to the floor and things like that. So
just clipping through the floor underneath.
Yeah,
it's
minor improvements. Yeah.
I am interested. Long forks, will you continue to do the super long forks, or are they kind of maybe not now after the Ripperoni incident?
We'll use them. After Ripperoni, we put a little wing on them so they can't fit through the hole. So we'll keep doing that. But I think long forks are an important part to have in your arsenal for ground game. There's a lot of sort of aspects to the ground game, and it's sort of like a circular thing of what beats what. So you got to have all the options. So we'll definitely still have them, but we'll see how often they get used. Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's fair. Very fair.
Now, the last question I think was probably one of my favourite ones, which I've seen ever sent to us. So thank you for sending it in. It comes from Robot Combat Models on Discord, and they say, first of all, congrats on another tournament win. Going forward from here, Endgame has pretty much achieved all the accolades possible, winning the main tournament once and Golden Bolt twice. What is the main goal for you all going forward, and what motivates you to keep coming back now that you've won everything?
That's an interesting one. I think everybody in our team will have a different answer to that. But for me personally, I'd say I want to win another giant nut with Endgame. I think we sort of I feel like if we do that, I'd want to retire it. If we win the nut, we'll put it aside and build something new. Yeah. But yeah, our team has a lot of new ideas for new robots that we think will be just as good. We just don't have the time to execute it right now. And especially if you're trying to, prepare in-game for BattleBots and build a new robot, it's quite hard. We don't have the people or resources as, team Seems Reasonable has, for example. So I think I'm hoping that one day soon we'll start building something new and bring that, and it'll be quite exciting. Yeah.
Interesting to hear.
So I guess don't be shocked if you don't see in-game on the lineup sometime in the near future.
That's more than fair. Like, it makes sense with how BattleBots is going. Like, it's locking down into like that top 50 robots. Like, it just gets tougher and tougher to kind of bring in a second robot and kind of justify a second robot. So retiring Endgame after a second nut makes sense.
But and once we've been building a game for 6 years now, so we're at the point where we're making sort of 1% improvements, 0.5% improvements here and there. We're not making big strides. So the sort of appeal of working on it and spending a whole year on it, and you basically bring the same thing back, sort of wears off a bit. So I think the team's excited to build something new sometime soon. Yeah.
What you really need to do is allow Endgame to be turned upside down to see if the self-writer works, and then it'll give you something good to work on.
I'm sure you've used it now, right? It has
yeah,
worked.
Copperhead fight.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, we used it, but it didn't matter that it worked. So it could have not been there, and we. Yeah.
Oh dear me.
Oh.
Well, it's done it all. Right,
there you
that's
go.
my only idea out the window. Fair.
Endgame is complete. It just needs one more.
I mean, to be fair, you need a second nut for the other bolt.
Yeah.
This is true.
That's the other logic.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I still miss the sunglasses as the self-writer. I understand why it's gone. But I really loved that look back in 2019 for the sunglasses self-writer.
Yeah, it was cool, but the way that worked is it limited the fork length. It wouldn't work for all forks, so I had to get rid of it. Yeah.
It doesn't look as good having sunglasses out the back on that.
Yeah, not quite eyes in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Jack, thank you so much for your time. We all really appreciate it, and it always is it's a pleasure to talk to you and try and pick the brains of a serial winner in Robot Combat. We have spoken to a few champions in the past, but the regularity in which Endgame is just so feared and so dominant is it's kind of unprecedented at the moment. So it's an amazing achievement, and keep doing what you're doing.
No, awesome. Thanks for having me on. You guys have got an awesome podcast, so yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome.
Top stuff. I don't know when we'll be back next. We will have a special podcast in the not too distant future, I think, which we'll get into when we get to. But at the moment, there is no new BattleBot season been announced yet, so we're still waiting just as much as everyone else is for information. But yeah,
some more than others for booking holiday. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've got a team to go and join, David. You've got to go.
I know. I got to scorp it up next year at some point.
Absolutely.
Make sure you take them their Lego wheels. They will need them.
They definitely will need those wheels. Yeah, more grip.
But yes, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for joining us on our adventure through the Golden Bolt Trophy. With all that said, I have been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been World of Woodrow.
I've been DavidofSmeg.
And I'm Jack.
Perfect.
Hey.
The three of us will see you soon for more Robot Combat goodness. We'll see you then.